Massachusetts, Ms. Pressley is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the Congresswoman representing the Massachusetts 7th, it includes the city of Boston. It's one of the largest cities in my district. And around 10% of our households are currently unbanked, and another 20% are considered underbanked. That's over 80,000 families. So being unbanked is incredibly expensive. Unbanked people in my district are forced to pay high fees for everyday financial services such as check cashing and money orders. And this doesn't even include the exorbitant costs of payday loans and being credit invisible. Then there's systemic closures of bank branches in low-income communities, predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods, which has really created banking deserts and exacerbated disparities. Another example of big banks really prioritizing profits over people. It's no accident that low-income communities of color in my district, such as Dorchester, East Boston, and Roxbury, consist of 57% of the city's check cashing locations, 67%, but only 12% of the city's commercial bank branches. Ms. Marceline, I know we've been talking today about solutions that Congress could enact to address, to support those that are unbanked or underbanked, and that's our job here in government, to solve problems, to alleviate and mitigate hardship. Can you describe how postal banking could be a solution and help people who are unbanked?
Absolutely. Thank you, Congresswoman Pressley, for that question. So yes, Americans for Financial Reform strongly supports postal banking proposals to increase, or I should say decrease, the underbanked population. Again, going back to the things that the underbanked population usually cites, lack of trust and unable to afford a bank account. Most people, you don't hear people talking about they don't trust their post office. You may not, it may be a little cumbersome to go to, but you trust it. You know that your packages will be there. You probably have a good relationship with your post officer and with your postman and such. So that's number one. And then it has the added value of having a branch in every zip code. Secondly, if we, many of these proposals that for postal banking, it's a free account. It's basic banking services. You can, have deposits and do basic withdrawals. And it's mostly, for folks that have low income, low to moderate income. So quick and easy way to access funds, and then, as you said, not having to pay to get your own money. Thank you.
Absolutely. Our post offices are indeed, they have that shovel-ready infrastructure, since there are brick and mortar locations in every zip code, and they can provide those basic financial services like check cashing, bill payment, small dollar loans. So it could really be very transformative. Instead of people going to shady predatory lenders, they can go to their local post office. Banking deserts and exclusionary practices of financial institutions, which are real, are widening the racial wealth gap, and we need bold, intentional proposals to build an exclusive, equitable economy. This final minute, Ms. Marceline, can you elaborate on how a postal banking system would narrow the racial wealth gap?
Thank you, absolutely. So again, if you increase the number of folks that are banked, you basically give them access to the financial system. Not having a bank account, how are you, if you want to buy your home, for example, there are a lot of things that you don't have access to if you don't have the basic, it's unfortunate I have to say privilege, but basic privilege of having a bank account. You want to open a brokerage account, for example. All of these things requires being linked. Even many of the fintech apps that are being talked today, they're being talked about today, they still require being linked to a bank account, which many low income and communities of color can't afford. So that cuts off their ability to build wealth and just gain access to the traditional financial system in many ways.
Thank you. I also wanted to just highlight legislation introduced, a bicameral bill by myself and Senator Booker, the American Opportunity Accounts Act, also known as baby bonds, which would ensure that every child is provided with a savings account at birth, would be seeded with funds that can be used for wealth-building activities such as starting a business, buying a home, pursuing higher education. Do you have any thoughts, Ms. Marceline, on our national baby bonds proposal?
Based
The
on
the gentlelady's time has expired. She'll have to submit that in writing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
The gentleman from